Daddy, we're doing.
I'm doing a podcast, Dizzy. Hello and welcome to the Too Cool for School podcast. I'm your host, Yannick, and on today's episode, my special guest will be sharing her journey from NHS to entrepreneurship. So I'll allow her to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Angela and I'm a nurse and I'm an entrepreneur. I'm the founder of Studio 88 Face and Body Clinic, and I also own clinics abroad as well. And I also teach and encourage nurses and healthcare professionals how to leave the NHS and do something more with themselves if that is something that they want to do.
Okay, great stuff, great stuff. Before we go into your sort of journey into entrepreneurship, how long were you working at the NHS for?
So I was working at the NHS. I'm not the poster girl for the NHS, but I was probably working at the NHS for a maximum of 3 years. Although I was still working as a nurse for longer, the actual NHS for the maximum of about 3 years post qualification.
Yeah. And for you, what was the moment that you felt like, do you know what, like this, like the NHS, like this isn't it for me, and this isn't working for me?
For me, what was happening is I was in a team. I was working in the community, and if anyone knows what working in the community means, so working in the community basically means you're out seeing patients, you're driving from home to home, either giving patients medication or administering care. And I was working in a team, and at the time I was one of the youngest people in the team. And I soon learned that there is a massive staffing issue with the NHS and just a lot of places within healthcare. There's a massive staffing issue. And where I was working, there was like a pattern of working, and you're supposed to do one Saturday a month. And some people do evenings, some people do during the day. What was happening, instead of them to take on like agency staff or bank shifts or bank staff, they would get me to come in and schedule me in without asking me, and I would be doing everybody else's shifts that not everybody else's, because there was no staff. I would have to then fill in instead of a bank staff. So I was now becoming overworked. And obviously, because I was new to the team, I was the youngest in the team, I kind of felt like I had no voice, and I kind of felt like I couldn't really say anything. So it just became overwhelming. And there was one particular month where, although you're only meant to be in for one Saturday, I was literally in for 3 Saturdays. I was penciled in back to back for 3 Saturdays. And when it leaked into the following month, it worked out. I was in for 4 Saturdays in a row. And when I saw that, I just thought, this is unfair.
Yeah.
Like, who do I speak to? Because the person who's doing my timetable is the highest in the team.
Yeah.
So it's like, who can I actually speak to say this is unfair? And when I actually did speak to someone, they were like, oh, you've got no kids. What are you doing on the weekend? I was like, I'm having a rest. I can't be in every single Saturday. So that was the moment I was just like, this can't be it for me. Like, I can't carry on doing this, because it was actually taking a toll on my mental health, it was taking a toll on my body, it was just taking a toll on my social life. It was just way too much.
Wow. And what were some of like the other challenges that you faced whilst like in the role, whether it's like emotional, financial, or systemic? Because I think one of the things, like in society, is that when we look at certain professions, whether it's healthcare, legal system, politics, or whatever else, we always give our opinions from the outside in terms of what's shared on the news,
of course,
what we've read in the newspaper, but we don't really know like the ins happening. And outs. So you having had that experience, what were like some of like the other challenges that you face, whether like it's like emotional, financial, or even like some systemic challenges?
What I will say, apart from the fact that it was just a staffing issue, is very real. When we always hear, oh, the NHS is understaffed, etc., burnout, that is a real thing. So apart from that, there was just this kind of thing where I felt kind of, because again, ageism, that was an issue. The older nurses felt like it was their turn to kind of boss us around and like give you things that were kind of like unfair to do, or give you a lot of work that would end you in burnout. One of the other things, I'll be very, very honest, is the financial aspect of it. everybody knows that nurses are not paid very well, especially in this country. I'm not talking about obviously outside of the UK, but in the UK, generally speaking, obviously we have nurses that are paid quite well, but generally speaking, nurses aren't paid very well. And that was something that hit me very quickly as well, because at the same time when I just became a nurse, I literally also then just moved out of my parents' house. And then reality really hit me, because when I was living with my parents, I wasn't paying any bills. I wasn't having to like buy obviously I contributed as you do, but it wasn't something that I had to do. So now I've moved out, I'm paying rent, I'm paying bills, I'm buying groceries, but I still want to go out with my friends. I still want to go on holiday. I still want to buy nice things. I started realizing I can't do that. I couldn't live what I thought was like a normal lifestyle that I was living before. I couldn't do that on the wage that I was on. So I found myself having to like take extra shifts and do agency work here and there, and I'm just tired and I'm just burnt out. So the financial aspect of it is very real. When people say, "Oh, nurses, they're not paid," but especially for what they're doing, they are not being paid enough. And I don't know how that's going to change or what's going to be put in place for a shift to be made, but it isn't enough, especially in today's day and age where things are just getting more and more expensive.
Yeah.
So,
It's
yeah.
not sustainable. Yeah.
At all. It isn't
It's not
sustainable.
sustainable, especially if we consider like the cost of living, especially for nurses who work in London.
Oh,
And then
absolutely.
and it's interesting that you speak about the pay rise as well, because I recall, if I'm not mistaken, during COVID, like we used to do that thing every Thursdays where we're going out
And
and
clap.
you're clapping for nurses.
Don't clap, give us money.
And then I remember after that, there was like a petition or something in government to say that
Yeah.
actually they deserve more money.
Yeah.
And then it was like, yeah, we're not doing that.
No,
and I thought to
it's
myself,
really bad.
that's actually, like
Really
that's
unfair.
actually like, yeah, that's a piss take.
And it's not even just nurses, it's just the whole healthcare system. Like, people are literally spending the majority of their day looking after sick people. And obviously you might, and I know there's like the argument where people say, but it's a vocation, you know what you were getting. And yeah, we do. But at the same time, I still feel like you need to be paid fairly. And it's not a case of you, as a nurse, you shouldn't expect that if you go into a traditional nursing role, you expect to become a millionaire. No, of course not. But it should be sustainable and it should add up to today's living. It just doesn't make sense at all.
Thank you for sharing that. And when you decided to leave, like how easy or how difficult was that decision for you, and what was the like reaction from like your peers and colleagues or even family, where people like, no, you need to push, like, keep trying. Like, how was the decision first of all, and how was the reaction from others?
So I want to say there was 2 times that I kind of left. So there was leaving the NHS and then there was leaving tradition. I don't want to say leaving nursing because I still consider myself a nurse. But there was leaving the NHS and then there was leaving nursing as a whole, as in traditional nursing as a whole. So at first, when I was leaving the NHS and I decided to become a full-time agency nurse, a lot of people see that as a risk, and I understand why they would see it as a risk, because you have to kind of depend on the agencies to provide you shifts, etc. But I honestly believe that is what kind of prepared me, which I didn't know at the time, for like being able to like be an entrepreneur, because it is risky. It is very risky not knowing where your next shift is coming from. But obviously I joined quite a few agencies. I kind of knew how to work the system. So I was able to kind of sustain myself, and I was very successful doing agency work. But I do remember at the time, my mum has also been a nurse since before I was born. She was a nurse from back in Nigeria, still continued her nursing here. She was absolutely against me becoming an agency nurse, like a full-time agency nurse, not working with the NHS at all. Because for her, she's been working with the NHS, they've done her well, she's talking about the pension, this, that, and the other. She's in the system and she understands it and is solid. And I understand the mindset. But for me, I just felt like this isn't enough for me. I don't like the fact that I don't have control over the time that I can take off. I don't like the fact that the money that I'm getting is not able to sustain what I thought was a reasonable lifestyle. I wasn't, trying to do A on a jet. It's just, I just wanted a reasonable lifestyle, but I wasn't able to get that from the NHS. But all my mum saw was just danger and just uncertainty, and she didn't understand it. So she tried to put me off, but I persevered, I didn't listen, and I continued. Now, in terms of when I kind of left the traditional nursing role, working as an agency nurse, that wasn't. It's a funny one because I don't even feel like it was a complete decision. I kind of just fell into it. I was always interested in working in like cosmetic surgery with doctors. I was always interested in like anesthesia, etc. And I thought that was definitely going to be the role I go down.
Yeah.
So doing my agency shifts, I came in contact with a particular doctor. We became quite good friends, and I didn't even know at the time, but he had a clinic in Harley Street.
Okay.
So one particular day he came up to me, but we always used to talk about it, and he just didn't really talk about that aspect of himself at work. So he mentioned that he does aesthetics here and there, but I didn't know that he actually had his own clinic at Harley Street. So yeah, he spoke to me and he was just literally like, "Oh, Angela, by the way, I've got a clinic in Harley Street. The nurse that I'm working with, she's going on maternity leave. I would like you to, if you're interested, I'd like to give you the opportunity to come and like work alongside me for the next few months." Do you know what? I just thought, I'm gonna say yes. It's something I've never done before, but I'm gonna say yes. So he literally provided me the opportunity to work alongside him. And honestly, it was probably the best decision of my life because it literally showed me the other side of life. And he showed me how working for yourself is so financially freeing. And it opened my eyes to how you can build wealth for yourself, for your families, for your community. And I'd never seen anything like it before. And to cut a long story short, he basically took me on. He taught me everything I know now. And obviously I've gone on to do a lot more training and learning. But the basics of how I became to transition from a traditional nursing role to being an entrepreneur is basically just saying yes to an opportunity and going with it. And honestly, I've never looked back.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, do you think there's anything that could have made you stay? Like you know what? Because there's always something that people say, oh, it'll be good about the pay or the workload or whatever. Is there anything that could have made you stay, or did you feel like you had got to like the end of your tether?
I was kind of at the end of my tether, in all honesty. For me, it was just, even with the agency shifts, it was fine, but it was just a case of, because when you start doing agency and when you're a full-time agency worker, you start working in teams. So you no longer feel like an agency staff, because I was working in a team. At this point, I had been working in a team that I'd been working with for like the last 2 years. So I was part of the team. I was even wearing the NHS uniform with them.
Yeah.
So from the outside looking in, you wouldn't know that I'm agency staff. There's just certain behaviours as well, apart from like, there's ageism, there's cliquey behaviours, you can only scale up if I'm seeing other nurses being mistreated, and I just can't stand for mistreatment. And it's just not something that I want to be around. I'm not saying every single place was like that. This is just my personal experience.
Yeah.
But I know from speaking to other nurses that this is something that other nurses have gone through.
Yeah.
And yeah, in terms of the NHS, the only thing that would have made me stay with the NHS is if they were paying us reasonably. That's the main thing. In all honesty, it was just not reasonable enough for me. That's the number one thing. But in terms of me staying in a traditional nursing role, I honestly just feel like I was presented with an opportunity that fell in line with things that I was interested in, and I went for it. And yeah, I don't think anything would make me go back, because I'm doing what I truly love. So nothing would make me change and go back to that. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So you've had that sort of experience at Harley Street, and you've got now like your buzz for like entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Like how was it first starting your business? Did you find that experience like really prepared you, or did you still find yourself like learning as you go on?
Every day in entrepreneurship is a day for learning, every single day. So in that instance, although the doctor I was working with, he kind of like, gave me a few tips and, told me what to do. But I won't lie, it was very nerve-wracking for me, because I'll be very honest, I didn't really, especially in the aesthetics industry, I didn't really see a lot of people that looked like me who were like owners of beauty and aesthetic. Obviously, like hair, that's a little bit different. But in like what I was doing, like clinical beauty, aesthetic treatments, I didn't really see many girls that looked like me doing what I was trying to set out to do. So if I'm honest with you, it was a lot of learning on the job, a lot of research, a lot of taking risks, a lot of just kind of like do it and see if it works. If it doesn't work, it's fine. It was a lot of like just using your gut and just having the gumption to just keep going. It was a lot of delulu, as they like to say. It was a lot of just believing you can do it and getting on with it. A lot of support from family as well. Again, I didn't tell my mum that I was starting aesthetics because I knew she was going to try and talk me out of it.
Yeah.
When I finally said to her, I'm starting my own business, she was like, business?
Yeah.
What do you mean about a business?
Yeah.
She's like, you're not a business owner. I said, yeah, no one is a born business owner.
Yeah.
No one is born. I'm sure some people are born for it, but no one is a born business owner. So I was saying to her, I was like, look, I've already done all this training. I've started, I've gotten a studio, and I had a studio, I had no clients, not one client, but I believed in myself enough to start.
Yeah.
And my mum was just like, business, what do you know about business? I said, I'm gonna learn. And you know what, now she's so proud and she's like very happy that I did it, etc. But yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And when you first started off, you mentioned about having the studio, having no clients and whatever else. Like, what were some of like the other obstacles like you faced? And I say this to say that there's a lot of people that they might be going out into their own businesses, whether it's in aesthetics, clinical, or whatever it is, and sometimes they expect it to be at a certain point by a certain time period, and when they don't get that, it's like, oh, I'm gonna fail, I'm gonna stop, and whatever else. And even over the years, like, there's been so many businesses that I can even think of, especially when I think about COVID. I know a lot of people that were like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Then you go on the Instagram pages and their last post was 2022. And I'm like, ah, cool, Like, people don't have like the longevity. So what were some of the obstacles you face, and what's meant that you've kept going? And just for context, like, how long has the business been open for now?
So now, all the training and everything I started doing was like 2019. So basically and it's so crazy because obviously COVID hit and I'd opened up a business.
Yeah.
But it still survived COVID and it's still
That's
persevering.
amazing.
So to answer your question, you kind of, a lot of people, when they say, oh, I've started a business, but I've got no clients, I've got no customers, I always ask them, especially like my mentees, when they say, okay, I've started now, but I've got no clients. I'm like, do people know about you? You have to be unapologetically loud about what you're doing. And I've got a mantra. In business, they need to know you, they need to like you, and they need to trust you. Those are the first three things that I always teach my mentees when they ask me questions like, I've started, how am I going to get clients, etc., etc. So if you are starting no matter what business is it, be it aesthetics, be it whatever business it may be, if they don't know about you, how are people going to be able to support your business or buy from you or buy your service? It's impossible. And then what you need to do is then build trust. And you build trust by people liking you. When I say liking you, be honest about the things that you're providing. Be truthful, be honest, and show up consistently. If you're sometime-ish, like you say, the businesses that you went to go and look on Instagram and the last post was 2022, but then imagine that person comes and says, oh, no one is buying from the business. You haven't been consistent. Consistency builds trust because they're like, okay, these people actually exist and they actually are a working business. So you need to be consistent about what you're doing. That will then build a trust. So with me, it's just a case of I've literally been very consistent and I have made sure that I show up for my business every single day. Now that sounds tiring, but if you enjoy doing what you're doing, you don't see it as a job. So I don't see what I'm doing as a job and I enjoy what I do. But if you actually want to make a success of your business, you need to be very, very consistent. And I know that word sounds boring because we hear it thrown about all the time, but consistency will get you where you want to be.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Thank you. And earlier you were speaking about when you were reflecting about on your time as a nurse and NHS.
Yeah.
You was reflecting a bit about the workload and about the pay.
Yeah.
Like now, as a business owner and an entrepreneur, like what does work look like for you now in terms of like workload and how do things look like financially? Do you feel like you're in a better position than you were before? So like
Absolutely.
how does the two compare?
So with being a business owner, everybody knows, well, you might not know, the work is kind of 24/7 in all honesty, because although you might not be physically working, your brain is kind of always ticking. But what I've had to try and do over the years is try and compartmentalize my work and try and give myself a switch off time. So, and sometimes no matter how hard you might want to do that and try to do that, it doesn't always work. But it is definitely important as a business owner or someone who's an entrepreneur to make sure you try and give yourself a switch off time. But I will not lie, the workload is a lot. But like I've said, because if you're doing, if you're an entrepreneur and you're in a business that you enjoy and you love, you don't see it as work. So you actually want to get it done. You want to do it. You want to. I've got clients that are coming up saying that I've changed their life, etc. It is so rewarding and so fulfilling. It's something that I want to continue doing. So I don't see it as work. So that's what kind of helps me sustain. Yeah.
That's important. And you mentioned a bit about some of the clients that you have, and you've spoken a bit about supporting nurses in particular to pursue entrepreneurship opportunities, going into corporate healthcare. What does that look like, and what drives that mission essentially?
So me and my friend and colleague Linda, so we own a business called Beyond the Shift. And Beyond the Shift kind of has like two meanings. A shift as in a change, and also a shift like, a nursing shift, a healthcare shift. And what we generally do is we put on events. We've put on quite a few events this year, and both online and physically. And our events basically help not just nurses and people within healthcare understand and know that there is life outside of traditional roles. So obviously a lot of people, if you think of a nurse, in your mind, you just think of like a hospital or maybe working in the community, etc. The traditional roles. But we want people to know that a nurse is literally working in so many different roles you wouldn't expect. Like in corporate, for instance, you would get nurses who are product managers, project managers, they work in tech, they're medical writers. They work with law firms. They work with lawyers. There's forensic nurses. There's nurses in so many different aspects of society, and people don't know that those roles existed. And especially people that look like us as well don't know that those roles exist until they might stumble across someone and say, for instance, they've been spoken to. But that is few and far between. There's only a few people. So we are on a mission to literally let people know that there is life outside the ward, and there is life outside of the hospital, and they don't realize this. So because I've done it myself, so obviously I'm an entrepreneur, and my friend Linda, she is a corporate nurse, but she also has her own businesses as well. We've both done it. We've both been able to pursue careers outside of traditional traditional nursing roles. So we want to be able to share and show that it's very possible. So a lot of our events that we put on, we have people who are in these areas of work. We've got tech nurses, we've got nurses that are project managers that are working with NHS England, different nurses in different roles that are not your traditional roles. We get them to come and speak to nurses and healthcare workers and let them know that there is a way out if that is what they're looking for. Because a lot of nurses are complaining of burnout and underpaid, overworked, etc. If that is yourself and if that is you, there is another way. And there is another way where you can be successful and you can actually have a fulfilled life. So that is our mission, and that is something that we're so passionate about, because it's not just a case of, it is good to encourage people and be able to like speak life into people, but we want to show people tangible ways of being actually able to move into these roles and actually make a success and actually be financially free as well.
No, that's important. That's very important. And do you think like going into these fields, like you need a specific like skill set or mindset to be able to sort of strive? Because I think, some nurses may be looking at their positions and thinking, you know what, I studied so long to get into this position. I've been in this role for so long. I don't know anything but doing what I do in the ward or doing what I do in the community.
Yeah.
How do I even navigate and try to step, outside of that? So what are the sort of things nurses can do if they are considering, taking that leap of faith?
So the first thing that you mentioned is about I've studied so long or I've worked so long. I need my nurses and healthcare workers to understand that yes, you studied so long to become a nurse. It doesn't mean that because you're stepping away from a traditional role, it makes you anything less of a traditional nurse. And even if it's a role that's got nothing to do with healthcare, you're allowed to take your nursing hat off, put it to the side, go and pursue something else that you're interested in. Your hat is still there. You're still a nurse. It doesn't stop you from being a nurse. And the example I always use is there's a lot of people that study laws that are not lawyers. You study nursing. During your nursing studying, you do practical examinations, you go on the wards, you learn how to look after patients. The skills that you learn as a nurse are all transferable skills into literally any workplace that you want to go into. And even if you feel, say for instance, you're reading, you're looking at a job opportunity and you're reading, you're thinking, I don't really match up to maybe some of the things here. This is where you need to go and do some work. You might need to go and do a little course online. You might need to join a workshop. Do something that's going to better yourself, invest in yourself so that you are going to be the right person for that role. So we encourage all our mentees, especially if you want to go into corporate roles, get on LinkedIn. You might think, oh, I'm a nurse. What am I doing on LinkedIn? I'm going to go on NHS jobs and look at NHS jobs is not the be all and end all of your career. If you're looking to expand and do something different and go into a different walk of life, go into tech, for instance, there are jobs outside of the NHS that you can go and do. You know, the NHS does not own your nursing degree. You work for your nursing degree and you can do with it what you want to do with it. So you can use your degree, use everything that you have learned in your nursing and apply it to other roles. You don't have to stick it out somewhere that you're unhappy. And I always remind them, if you're unhappy being a nurse or a healthcare provider and you're looking after people, that will reflect on your role. So it's better for you to leave and think about yourself, be a little bit selfish sometimes and think about yourself and go into a role that's going to benefit you. And at the same time, is actually benefiting patients, because you don't want to be doing something and you make a mistake because you're burnt out and you're overworked and you're unhappy. It's better for you to choose yourself and go and do something and pursue something that you're going to be, happy in.
No, that's important. That's important. And when you talk about like the work that you do for nurses and supporting them, you've mentioned a bit about having mentees and doing mentoring, and you've mentioned a bit about clients and training. Like for those who might be listening and they might be saying, actually, do you know what, this sounds good, I want to know more about what they do. Like what does the training look like? What does the mentoring look like?
So myself and Linda, we've got online training that you can get online. I'll give, when Yannick gives all my details, you'll be able to see it online. So we have a course online that you can do. It's a short course. It's just explaining to you and breaking down what you need to do to get into these roles. Like I explained a little bit about like putting yourself on LinkedIn, changing your mindset, just giving you certain things and pieces of knowledge to understand. Little tiny changes can make such big differences. So we have a short course for that. We also have like mentorship programs, and also if there's any nurses or healthcare workers that also want to get into aesthetics, so Studio 88, we also provide training for that if that is something that they're interested in. And another thing I will mention, a lot of nurses also believe that aesthetics is the only way as well. Not every single nurse has to go down the aesthetics route. It was something that I was actually interested in whilst I was training to be a nurse. Not necessarily aesthetics, but I was interested in like cosmetic surgery, etc., etc. So we do mentorship and if any individual, wants a mentor, I always say some people might not understand the value of having a mentor, but I always say if you're trying to go somewhere and you don't know the way, it is better to speak to someone who's done the journey before And that is the beauty of mentorship. So that is what me and Linda provide. I'm also providing mentorship in entrepreneurship, and she more so provides mentorship in getting into the corporate world. Yeah.
No, that's great. And you know, when you do those training sessions and you have a look around and you see like all of the nurses that are looking at opportunities elsewhere, do you think it's a case of NHS sort of pushing them out in terms of like the workload and the pay, etc., or do you think rather it's a pull for them like having like greater ambition of doing more?
I think it's a mixture. In all honesty, I think it's definitely a little bit of both. Because right now, I don't know if you know, but a lot of student nurses don't have jobs because there's no jobs for them. So if you're a student nurse and you just graduated and you're at home and you're trying to get a job, you've been applying for months. That's kind of being pushed into looking at other roles, because it's just like, I'm sitting at home.
That's crazy. I
It's
didn't
so,
even know
honestly, it's very, I think I only learnt about this a couple of weeks ago. It is so crazy to me.
And what's the time frame from when you finish study to
straight
finding
away.
a job?
So when I was a student nurse and I became a nurse, it was before you finish your nursing degree, you usually have a job lined up.
Yeah, but now it's
not the case.
Like, how long is the wait now?
Now I've got a nurse that that I know, and this nurse I have to speak about. She's doing amazing work because she's a student nurse. Well, she's graduated now. So she's actually no longer a student nurse. She's a qualified nurse, but she's taken a lot of student nurses under her wing, and she's literally coaching and just speaking life into them to let them know that you're gonna be fine at the end of it, because she is fine, although she still hasn't found a job and she's been out of work for a long time. So it's just so crazy that is the situation. There's not enough pay for the nurses, and now there's not enough work for them. So where do you stand?
Yeah.
So anyone who's even wanting to become a nurse, you've got that fear of, I might not have a job at the end of this.
Yeah.
And that was kind of that was probably something that entices a lot of people to go into nursing as well, because when I qualify, I have a job.
Yeah.
No matter what. It might not be the job that I want initially, but when I qualify, there is a job at the end of it.
And the people that come to your training, have they already left nursing? Are they still in nursing and they're trying to sort of figure out?
We've got student nurses. We've got people who are in the thick of it. They've been nursing for maybe a few years. We've got people been nursing for years. We've got people who have kind of like just retired from the job and even tried other things. Got nurses try to become teachers and different things, and they said, okay, let me try my hand at something else. Literally from different scopes, absolutely different scopes. But the main one, I would say, the bulk is people who are currently nurses and they're quote unquote fed up.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And do you think there's any potential like for like collaboration work with like NHS or the healthcare system in terms of like, how do we work to ensure that all of these talented nurses like yourselves and the ones that are looking for other opportunities are maybe not leaving the system?
I would hope there could be some sort of collaboration. I don't know how it would work, but I would hope there would be some sort of collaboration, because at this current time, it doesn't look great. It doesn't. It really doesn't look great. When I speak to nurses literally day in, day out. They message me, they DM me. I'm constantly speaking to nurses, and in all honesty, it's sad what I'm hearing. It's really sad. A lot of nurses, sometimes even the ones that do are lucky enough to get a job, it's just not what they thought it was going to be. And then when they get their first pay, they're just like, oh, it's just not what it's like. They knew, but it's like reality. It's that reality check of it. It's just like, oh, this is what's really happening. So it would be nice if there was some sort of a collaboration. There just needs to be a change. And at this moment in time, I couldn't even tell you what the change needs to be, but there needs to be a change. There needs to be some sort of reform. But unfortunately, it can only come from above.
Yeah.
It can only come from above. It can only come from the powers that be. And we all know how the rigmarole of that works. It's not an easy or quick process. It's going to take years, but there absolutely needs to be a change. Or I feel like the NHS has kind of already collapsed a little bit. It will continue to collapse.
Wow.
It will.
And you mentioned earlier when you was doing your introduction that you still, consider yourself
I do.
a nurse,
Yeah.
although you haven't been, sort of directly
Yeah.
in the
Patient.
field.
Yeah. Patient. Yeah.
Like, do you feel like you can be a nurse and a businesswoman at the same time? And like, what does that
look like?
What does that look like? So now as the business person, because you've been talking about the transferable skills that you learn in NHS that you can bring it into the corporate spaces.
Yeah.
Like what does being a nurse and a businesswoman look like for you?
So they work parallel side by side. So for me, although I'm not looking after sick patients, I'm still looking after patients. So my clients are still my patients. So they come in with their different ailments, although these ailments are more cosmetic ailments, but there's still the empathy, because I get clients that maybe they're going through issues with, say for instance, their weight, for instance, and they've struggled with it for maybe a long time, etc. I mean, my team are able to get them down to a size that they never thought that they'd be able to get down to. It's, just to being empathetic towards them, showing your understanding, doing check. I'm still doing consultations. I'm still administering medications. I'm still doing these things that you kind of need to be a nurse for.
Yeah.
So, obviously you don't need to be, you can be an esthetician and administer these things, but these are still nursing skills that I use in my everyday life.
Yeah.
Be it even if I'm not physically seeing patients, when I'm still running the business behind scenes, I'm still using critical thinking. I'm still having to be empathetic. I'm still having to, being able to be a multitasker. I'm still using all these skills to enable me to flesh out what I do.
Yeah.
So I'm still a nurse, but yes, I'm a business owner. And to everybody else who wants to be a nurse and a business owner, you can absolutely do the two together.
That's amazing, and I've seen on your social media, like you call yourself like the nursepreneur.
Yeah.
And like how important is that identity?
Yeah.
Of like outside of the transferable skills and whatever else, like how important is that identity of you being like a nurse
Entrepreneur.
to you?
Yeah, it's as
in
the nurse part.
Yeah, the nurse part, because you could have just been like you're an entrepreneur.
For
like,
me,
what's important about the nurse bit for you?
Because that is the genesis of what I've done. So for what I'm doing right now, me being a nurse is what has helped me get to where I am today. So I feel like if it wasn't for my nursing background, I wouldn't have, I'm sure, because there's people who are estheticians and they're not nurses and they're flourishing and they're doing fantastically. But for me personally, and my personal journey, me being a nurse led me to that doctor, that led me to Harley Street, that led me down the road of learning and picking up all these skills to do with business and to do and clinical skills that I wouldn't have learned or I wouldn't have journeyed if I hadn't picked up my nursing degree and decided to become a nurse. So it is definitely a big part of my identity. So not only I'm an entrepreneur, but my nursing led me down that journey.
Yeah. That's amazing. And what does the future look like for you in terms of like, Studio 88, in terms of like nursepreneur? Like what are some of the things that you want to sort of achieve in the future?
So definitely with Studio 88, we're definitely gonna be expanding. I've got a business out in Nigeria that's doing really, really well. I would love to open up in different in a few other countries as well. I've already started talking to someone in Dubai. Just to expand it and like provide treatments to everybody. Clinical, science-based clinical treatments is something that's very important to me. Not just treatments that, people have heard of and that might not work. We want to provide treatments that are going to help people, treatments that actually work. And that is very important to me. I like to do, these are real people, real results, science-backed clinical treatments. And in terms of nursepreneur and Beyond the Shift with my colleague Linda, we are going to be doing a lot of work, and I can't really speak about some of the stuff that we're going to be
Yeah,
doing.
that's perfectly
Yeah, I
fine.
can't really speak about some of the stuff we're going to be doing, but it is going to be massive. We're going to be we're going to really, really, really be helping people, not just nurses, but people in the healthcare space entirely, because there needs to be a change and there needs to be a shift. So we have got a big plan in place to actually push that forward.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to doing that.
that's great. And
Yeah.
and just in a sort of practical sense as well.
Yeah.
Before we start to wrap up,
Yeah.
in terms of like going into like nursing,
Yeah.
like for those who are listening who are maybe, you know, still in like college or uni or whatever else,
Yeah.
like what's the route into nursing in terms of like practical qualifications and whatever else?
So the same route is like you would do any other degree, but obviously the nursing degree is different, where you actually have to do practical training. I'm not quite sure how it is now, but I remember when I was training, we used to get a bursary, and we would get not even no, was it a bursary? Yeah, we would get a bursary. But we would be heavily training on the job. That is a big part of nursing. So you'd be training on the job. You'll have placements in different hospitals, in different healthcare settings. I remember I had a GP surgery placement, community placement, hospital placements. So you learn how to basically be a nurse practically. So it's not a surprise to you. And then afterwards you would qualify, and then you're supposed to then go into a job.
Yeah.
You know, so that is basically the route. And I'm hoping that this little thing that's going on with nurses, not student nurses not being able to get jobs once they qualified, actually gets sorted out, because it is quite sad. Like, they've worked hard, they've done a lot of training, and then there's no work at the end of it. And I really really need that to really hope that gets sorted out.
And those like qualifications and practical experiences,
Yeah.
like would you still need that if you was going into maybe working at Studio 88 with beauticians, or working in like more corporate settings? Like, would you still need those qualifications?
Not necessarily. You wouldn't necessarily need a nursing degree
Yeah.
to become an esthetician. Although there's a lot of like change. The government's going to be changing a lot of things with legislation, etc. But you don't necessarily need a nursing degree to be an aesthetic practitioner. But what I will say is, I want nurses and healthcare workers to know that the skills that they have, the clinical skills that they've picked up, the communication skills, critical thinking, the empathy, all those skills that they've picked up are very transferable into these roles. But you don't necessarily need a nursing degree to be able to go into these roles. Yeah.
That's amazing. And as we finish off, I wanted to finally ask, like, in 5, 10, 15, 20 years time, when you're looking back at you know, the various roles and the projects that, you know, you've done, especially like looking at it through its genesis of when you first started, like what sort of legacy do you want to leave behind, like looking back?
Oh, that's a good question. The legacy I want to leave behind is the legacy of truth and honesty. Just, I don't want to ever put things in people's minds of things that they can't achieve. Anything that I say that you're able to do, I believe that you can do it. And when I say to people, oh, you can do this, especially like with my mentees or the nurses that I come across, I really try and speak life into them, because I know and believe that they can do it. I'm not just speaking to speak. So I want to leave that legacy behind of truth, that I'm not just talking, I'm not just a talker.
Yeah.
And that is with my business, my personal business, and in my outreach, my mentorship that I do. Yeah.
No, that's crazy, man. Just leaving that empowerment for them. So yeah, that's important. And I think, you know, like just listening to what you said, and I think it's similar to me as well in my journey within education, is that I've really been intentional with branching out and thinking, actually, what does education look like beyond the classroom?
Okay.
The same way you're saying, like, what does nursing
look like
like beyond the ward?
Yeah.
And there's so many opportunities out there
There is.
to
There's
grow,
so many.
to learn, to network, to develop, and even creating this platform is a testament of
absolutely.
of that learning as well. So 100% appreciate you coming
thank
on.
you. I
Appreciate
I
sort
love
of
it.
sharing your experiences, your journey. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
That has been the Too Cool for School podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share, subscribe, and follow us on all of our social media channels. Thank you.